Late last year, YT Industries unveiled the next step in its e-mountain bike story with the Decoy SN MX. And today the brand has unveiled the next step in that story, the YT Industries Decoy SN 29. And it takes an awful lot of the learnings and some of the componentry of that enduro bike, but pares it down to a trail e-mountain bike. So this is going to be a first ride review, so first we'll go over some details. So YT Industries is saying that this bike is an aggressive trail mountain bike that's very much designed to do a bit of everything, but do it with a lot of composure and a lot of speed. And during this whole press trip, the designers have been talking about how the two bikes compare. So the MX is very enduro focused, it's a 170mm travel e-mountain bike. It's designed to be ridden at bike parks and designed to be ridden incredibly hard, whereas this bike is designed for a very different audience, although it looks very similar and essentially it gets the very same front end. So this bike is designed to be more stable but without sacrificing agility too much. But yeah, it's designed to go up a hill well, it's meant to go down a hill just as well, and yeah, it's designed to be versatile but well capable of heavy hitting trails. So let's start off with explaining the similarities between the bike. And the Decoy SN 29 uses the very same front end, or the front triangle, as the MX bike, and it uses the same chainstay. However, where things change is in the shock yoke, but if instead of 160mm travel, this bike gets 140mm travel. The seat stay is different too, but it also uses the same chainstay, it uses the same rocker link here. It's a carbon rocker too. At the front we get 160mm travel, which provides quite an interesting balance of the travels. Usually you'd only get like a 10mm bump up, but yep, that's 160mm fork right there. So the bike also runs Fazoo's Ride 60 drive system, which kicks out 55 Nm of torque, but on this particular bike, Fazoo is introducing the 480 Wh battery. But for reference, we're currently running a 430 Wh battery. With that, the brand says that there's 10% more capacity, so you'll be able to get a good bit of extra range out of that. So in another area where the bike deviates from the MX bike is that this is a 29-inch wheeled bike, both ends. There is no way of changing that, that's just the way it is. And the brand's chosen that because the bigger rear wheel offers more grip, more traction. It deals with rollover a lot better, and it helps carry speed much better down the trail. As for frame features, it's all pretty modern, and it is, again, pretty much the same as the MX bike if you already know that. If you don't, here's a review, we should have that live already. But we've got internal cable routing, and that is guided inside the frame with formed cable guides, so you should be able to push one cable in and it'll come straight out the other end. There's room in the front triangle for a bottle cage, and you've got an accessory mount right at the top here, dual bolt, just kind of usual stuff there. You've got a UDH hanger right at the end, so you can run SRAM's latest kit. And there's a pretty lengthy dropper post there, and I believe that dropper post comes with some adjustments. As for the geometry, this bike gets YT's steepest ever seat tube, and that measures in at 78.8 degrees, which is pretty damn steep. Elsewhere, there's a 64.5 degree head tube angle, there's a 477mm reach on this large frame, there's a 447mm chainstay, which is 5mm longer than on the MX bike, and that makes a lot of sense, and we'll dive into that in a bit. So just talk about the range real quick. There are 3 bikes, prices start at £6,500 and top out with this bike at a full £9,000. On the base level bike you get Shimano regular mechanical drivetrains, you get some Fox Performance suspension, and then there's the middle of the range, which I think is going to be the most popular. You get RockShox Ultimate suspension, you get the SRAM S1000 drivetrain, so that's T-type axis. And then on this high-end bike, of course, you've got Foch Casterman to play with. That's a 36 fork as well, Float X shock. We've got SRAM's EXO transmission drivetrain, and there is YT's Postman dropper. Something really cool to note, which we'll dive into more even later, is that each of those bikes runs Hayes Dominion A4 brakes, and that's a really excellent choice because they're real easy to maintain, real easy to set up, and they actually perform fantastically on the trail without being too heavy. So that's a general outline of the bike. Let's go ride some trails and we'll talk about the bike even more. Alright, so if we dive into the specification, this is the Core 4 bike. So it is the range top, it'll set you back £9,000. The range starts at about £6,500. That'll get you the Core 2, I believe. So yeah, for that $9,000, YT isn't messing around as per usual. There's no own brand stuff on this bike apart from the frame. Speaking of the frame, each one uses the ultra modulus carbon fibre, which is the really posh stuff that YT usually reserves for the fancier bikes. So yeah, the specification, we've got Fox factory bouncers, so that's Kashima, got 36 at the front and Float X at the rear. Got carbon hoops from DT Swiss, SRAM's EXO drivetrain, transmission drivetrain, sorry, and Maxxis rubber. So we've got a Minion DHF at the front with a max grip compound, great to see. Oh, nothing there. And we've got DHR2 at the rear. There's race face carbon stuff, so the crank and the bar is from the Aero range from Race Face. Good stuff, really. So with that longer chainstay, YT has managed to create something that's a bit more of a accomplished climate. So weight is placed fairly centrally between the wheels, and yeah, traction is very, very plentiful. And that's just the kind of theme in general. And yeah, there have been some changes in the suspension kinematic, which makes it a little bit plush off the top and not quite as progressive near bottom out. Yeah, it's all kind of resulting in good things. Much better balance, much more versatile machine than before. So there are some changes in the suspension kinematic that translate very well onto the descents. You got like, well, the bike just has a lovely plush feel about it, despite having relatively little suspension compared to the other bikes. But it's quite heft of mid-stroke support, so you can properly push in the corners. It won't blow through all that travel. And when it comes to sliding into berms and things like that, the bike's very welcoming doing so. Because weight distribution is generally a little bit more central. You can very easily weight both wheels, and the bike's very receptive to how you weight those wheels. So when corners like this, you can keep things nice and even. When things get a bit tighter, you can weight the front real easy, light in the rear, and kind of slide that rear wheel around the corner, and it's real easy to do. Like, I'm not the most dynamic guy on a bike, but it's kind of has unleashed a little bit of a hooligan trait to my personality. And yeah, riding the front of this bike is real good fun. It really wants it. So the brand seems to have got the geometry pretty dialed on this. Yeah, so the chainstay isn't quite as long as the MX, but it's pretty planted, pretty stable, and kind of welcoming of most of the riding you want to do with it. The head angle's fairly slack on it, so it's kind of fitting that aggressive trail vibe that the brand's trying to achieve. And yeah, the brand's achieved that really well. It's pretty, easy to ride quickly, and yeah, super welcoming. Big fan of that lower bottom bracket. And I'll admit the head tube is a bit slacker than I thought it would be. About under or just over 64. And that just helps with stability when you're going quick and when you're tackling steeper things. And where YT is trying to build a bike that's happy to do most things, I believe the brand's done a good job there. Something else to also mention is that this bike gets Hayes Dominion brakes, and I'm really happy to see that. We don't see them all that often on bikes. A bit hard to come by really, But yeah, fantastic brakes. You've got real good power, but yeah, good power, good modulation. But the best bit is that they're super easy to maintain and set up thanks to crosshair tech and things like that. Yeah, you can bleed the caliper separate to the lever, which is a fantastic touch. Big fan of them. On the subject of brakes, you've got 200mm rotors at both ends, which again, lovely. This bike is awesome fun. I mean, it's definitely not as going as others, but it does all the things. Super supportive, not too aggressive in terms of like compliance or stiffness. Very accommodating here. Lovely techie stuff. Yeah, the suspension's pretty dialed in the way that it's supple, but there's tons of support in it if you need it. It absolutely loves speed and a bit of flow, but yeah, it's equally as capable when things get a little bit bumpy. And for like the general mass of UK trails, it has so much to give. Real good fun. YT has done an excellent job. But anyway, cut to the car park, see it off. So those are some first impressions on the YT Industries Decoy SN 29, and it's an incredibly well-rounded bike. And I'd even go to say that for my kind of riding and the kind of riding that we've got on the UK quite a lot, it's a really fantastic option. It kind of covers all the bases really well, super well-rounded, and actually just an awful lot of fun. Although it's got 140mm suspension, it ends up feeling like more, so you can push the bike harder, but that suspension has a ton of support in the mid-stroke, so I've been pushing into corners harder than I usually do, just because I know it's got all of that support there, and it's actually just a hell of a lot of fun. YC's kind of sorted the geometry incredibly well, so yes, it is well rounded, but you can push it really hard when the terrain gets a bit steep or a bit more bumpy. And yeah, it's a bike with an awful lot to give. So we should have this bike coming in for a long-term review as well, so keep an eye out on off-road.cc for that, but we will have a more in-depth first ride review coming very shortly. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.